Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and 200 episodes in, and I still cannot get my intro right. But yeah, well, in the words of The Rock, it doesn't matter, right? Because I have the host of Cafe con Leslie. She's the one
Yes.
and only Leslie Colon. Leslie, how are you?
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for setting time out of your day. Obviously, you were in the midst of a move and everything. So
hmm
how is that going? Everything cool?
Yeah, everything's good. I'm finally settled back in LA, which I've been wanting to be back for a while. If you guys don't know me, I'm actually from San Diego, born and raised, and I went back for a little bit, took a little bit of a break from the LA life, but I'm here now where I've always wanted to be.
I mean, close to the beach, that's a cool deal, but it's weird
Yeah.
because, like, people moving, most people, especially during this time, don't move to LA. Like, it seems like
Right.
there's been this, like, exodus, especially a podcaster exodus from LA to either Vegas or Texas, thanks to Joe Rogan.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my sister was already here, and I always wanted to be back in LA just because, the industry's kind of here. I obviously didn't plan for a pandemic to go on and for everything to kind of shut down, but I was like, hey, I would like to have my own place again and have my own space. So I was like, why not move back to LA? And my sister is a great roommate, so everything's good.
That's not bad, and not bad to have a family member kind of in the place that you want to be.
Yeah.
That makes things, it mitigates kind of the weirdness that can happen, especially with roommates.
Oh, definitely. I had some experiences when I went to college in the dorm, so I'm like, I'm just got to be with family.
Yeah, absolutely. And family is, I mean, especially, it's weird, right? Because usually people around the holidays, it's not so well. I myself had,
hmm
like, both of my parents pass away three
Oh
years
my
apart
God.
in the same month.
I'm so
So, like,
sorry.
yeah, I mean, no, thank you. But, it's just, it gets weird around the holidays. But, like, if it couldn't get any weirder, here we are.
I know. It's crazy. Especially, I love to have family gatherings. I love to be together with all my family. So I know this year is going to be a little bit different, especially for Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a little bit hard for me to adjust because I am a very social person and I like to be with everyone. So now it's going to be like, okay, time to just figure out what we're going to do for these Christmas and Thanksgiving because it's like literally right around the corner.
I saw a meme right before we jumped on. In terms of, like, getting rid of stuff that you may not want, or even easing the holidays, like the stuff that you don't want, wrap them up in, like, Amazon boxes and place them outside your front door. And chances are, around the holidays, somebody will want to,
We'll take it.
procure that. Just say it.
That's interesting. That's a good theory. I don't know if I'll try it, but I think I got rid of a lot of stuff while I was moving right now.
Well, I mean, that's good to kind of have shed yourself of some unwanted weight on the
hmm
unwanted items. But I mean, one thing that isn't unwanted is you in not just pro wrestling but entertainment. So I want to
Yeah,
ask you, how did you start your journey?
my journey. Well, that's a great question. Are you ready for a story? Because I do have a
Yeah,
story.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, my career it's pretty short. I'd say 3 years now that I've actually been on camera and really where my career started, but let me take you back to kind of the beginning of all this. I was still in high school when that's kind of when the pressure starts and everyone starts to ask you, what are you going to go to school for? What do you want to be? Like, what's going to be your career? And I honestly never had, like, I was never good at math or science, or I never said I'm going to be a doctor or anything like that. I was like, I don't know what I'm good at. Like, what am I good at? So then I started putting things together. I'm like, well, I love to talk to people. I've always been very social. And then there was one Sunday, because my family and I are very big on football, and we're all watching football. It's literally since the minute we wake up till that Sunday night game that we don't leave our house just to watch football. We're pretty committed. So I was watching a game, and then I see Erin Andrews on the sideline reporting, and I was like, that's it. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be in stadiums. I want to travel for work, and I want to be able to interview people, because that's just something natural that came about. So then I started doing my research, and I started researching where she went to school, what she went to school for, and kind of just really learning about communications. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a major, like, I'm first generation, so I was the first one to go to college and kind of figure all that out. So I'm like, communications. So then I just started researching, and then I was like, okay, I'm just going to put communications on my college applications. And yeah, first comm class, it's the general one where it's public speaking and everyone's super nervous and you have to record yourself. And I just remember seeing so many people like suffer in that class and hate it because not everyone likes public speaking. And then there I was just like doing it like nothing. And I remember there was this one girl who she would get super nervous and she would actually ask me for advice. And she's like, you're so good. And I'm like, I'm just talking. It's just kind of like what I like. So I remember helping her out, and like at the end of the semester she thanked me because she grew and she felt more comfortable because I kind of gave her some advice. So it was kind of because of a Sunday of football and Erin Andrews that I kind of found my career on what I wanted to do in regards to communications. It's pretty crazy.
I think it's brilliant. And again, in terms of, especially right now, more so than any time that I could remember in history, like in terms of finding things that could help you kind of further, I mean, things that you didn't even think you could do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't even know that communications was a kind of career path and a college trajectory,
Right.
So I think it's amazing, and I don't think that the world could use any less of people to motivate. And you just never know where motivation comes from.
Exactly. I think one of the key points that you said was I didn't even know this existed. I always knew that I love to talk to people. I wanted to make a difference somehow. I love to give back. So I knew that being in front of the camera, I didn't know how I was going to get there. I think all of us still kind of struggle with there's really no clear path. And that's where I've always been a wrestling fan. So I started watching wrestling a little bit more because of Total Divas. And then I started doing my research and saw that Kathy Kelly was actually from AfterBuzz. So then that's when I started researching AfterBuzz. And fun fact is I actually reached out to her because it was when I was applying to be an internship. I actually started as an intern there. And I asked her for advice. And yeah, she responded and we had a full-on conversation. This is before she was like huge, but I still have those messages to like prove that we had that conversation. And yeah, I applied to AfterBuzz, and I honestly, it was because of one of my neighbors. He was really good friends with I don't know if you remember Ryan, who was from AfterBuzz like a long time ago.
Absolutely.
And so we talked about that, and he was like, yeah, like my friend Ryan said you should apply, like, and I was like, okay. So then I applied for AfterBuzz, and I got the interview to be an intern, and then I became an intern, and I learned the behind the scenes, and that's when I started realizing like, okay, this is cool, like this is really what I want to do. Obviously, once my internship ended, they're like, audition to become a host, and I was like, okay, well, I have no reels, I don't have any experience. Like, the thing that helped me was I was an intern. They knew like my work ethic. So then I auditioned, and fun fact, I didn't get in the first time. They were like, no. Yeah, I was really nervous because I've never really recorded myself, and they didn't accept me the first time. It didn't matter that I was an intern. So I was like, okay, I needed to learn to kind of relax and not focus too much on the camera and literally just talk to the camera. So I kind of learned. I asked TK for advice. I asked Monique who I did one episode of Total Divas with them as an intern. So then they were helping me out, and I auditioned again, and then I got in, and I was like, okay, now I'm on the other side. I went from being an intern to seeing everyone, and now I'm actually a host. And let me tell you, that first show, I recently watched it back. I said probably like 5 sentences in the whole hour because I was so nervous. And to see my growth now and watch, like, I went from being super shy and not talking, which is not like me, to being like moderator and to hosting a couple more shows, and to be able to be part of like the wrestling after shows like Raw. It was a big deal for me because I started in the reality side and I didn't know exactly how I was going to move into Raw and SmackDown, because those are bigger shows which obviously have a bigger audience and you have to know what you're doing. But shout out to Flo Bito, who believed in me and he gave me an opportunity. I know he's one of your good friends, and he gave me an opportunity to be on the Raw after show, and that's kind of where things have been.
No, I love it. And I mean, obviously, you mentioned TK Trinidad, who,
Hmm.
in her own right, hosts a tremendous show,
Yeah,
Women's Wrestling Talk, which you were a guest on.
I
I
was a
was
guest
on,
last week.
yeah, I was on the yesterday. So go ahead and follow them and on all of their social medias and subscribe to the channel. Leslie and I are on, and
Hmm.
you should too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been blessed to really surround myself with people who believe in me and who really push me. It's hard, honestly, in the entertainment industry to kind of find those people. But I've been very lucky to really have a big support system, not only with my family, but with like people like TK, like Monique, who believed in me, like Flo Bito, who's always been there when I'm doubting myself, and Georgia as well, Georgia Hermosa, who's you had on as well.
Yep.
So again, I'm really thankful, because if it wasn't for those people, I don't think I would have the confidence to where I am, because it's really weird. I tend to like question myself a lot and doubt myself, because it is a little intimidating to be in front of the camera, especially with all these people that have been doing it for such a long time. But confidence grows with practice, and that's kind of how things have been going for me.
No, 100%. And I mean, again, shout out to the great Flobo Boys because
Hmm.
he was actually trying to get me into AfterBuzz.
I heard,
With
he
video
told
edition and
me.
everything. Yeah, so that was supposed to happen, and then COVID hit, and then it's funny, right? Whether it be Flobo or George Ramosa of the
Hmm.
Wrestling Chatter, like how everyone has kind of spun out into other things. Now, obviously, AfterBuzz will always be there and be a part of all of your lives. But I mean, the cool things that you guys have done, since that, and during COVID, proving that, especially with all of the craziness that's going on, you guys can still win, right? And
Right.
I, 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 I almost kind of consider you guys like my brothers and sisters, even though apart, because I mean, when I was like kind of trudging away over the last 4 years at MMA shows and everything, I'd always look to see what you guys were doing. All of the, after Raws, all the after
Thank you.
SmackDowns and Bella shows and everything, and looking at what you guys were doing and learning vicariously through it. So
Yeah.
I thank all of you guys for that.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Yeah, it's been crazy, honestly. When the pandemic hit, when AfterBuzz kind of closed temporarily, I felt like I was the one that kind of it hurt the most, because I was being safe. Before all that, Flobo was telling me, he was like, you should really do your own thing. And then, but it was all these questions like, what am I going to talk about? What am I even going to call myself? What am I going to like? I don't know what to talk about aside from like wrestling, what we're constantly doing every week. And I knew that they were going to have similar shows. So I'm like, what is going to make me different? So it took me a long time. If you listen to the New Amsterdam episode where he interviewed me, I still wasn't, and this was, I think, in March, I still was not confident that I was going to create my own channel. I said that I was going to, but I never actually took the steps to do it until months later, which is obviously now I have my own channel. But it was really hard, because with AfterBuzz, I was finally getting these opportunities that I never was gonna get. Like, I was finally certified for red carpets right before the pandemic hit, so I actually was gonna go to WrestleMania. And for me, like a girl from a small town in the North County of San Diego, who nobody really thinks that, being in front of the camera or being entertainment is kind of a path to go. And I was finally creating that path for myself. So to kind of lose that opportunity, to lose these other red carpets that, for once, I've done PR for red carpets, so I've worked on the behind the scenes, but not in like front of the camera. So when these opportunities started to kind of go away because of COVID, I kind of had to reset myself and think differently. So honestly, it's weird, but this pandemic has been a blessing for me in regards to my growth and my mindset. I'm more confident now. I feel like I'm okay now with my own channel, and it's really a matter of going out of your comfort zone, because I was super like comfortable with AfterBuzz and I was okay with just being there for a bit, especially because I just started. But then this pandemic kind of forced me to create my own path and create my own channel.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of the story of whether it be content creators, that
Mm-hmm.
were pre-pandemic, or people that just wanted to throw their kind of name in the hat, so to speak. I'm much like Jofo in the Ring, which has a great YouTube channel. You guys should subscribe, but it says "Love Leslie." How could you
Thank
not?
you.
How could you not? So shout out to Jofo coming in on YouTube, but yeah, so I mean, it's kind of crazy, and even like for me, like I did fuck all. Like honestly, like up until July, I didn't do a damn thing. I might have
Yeah.
posted a couple of like product reviews from buddies, like hair balm and what have you on Instagram, and got people. And this shows you how much it predates it. But like, I started doing Instagram lives with people, and this
Yeah.
was prior to Instagram having the feature where you could actually save it. So like I did probably about
Mm.
a dozen, and they
Yeah.
just went off into the ether, like never to be
Right.
seen again. Right. So then July, I was on a couple of podcasts, Keyboard Wars and MMA podcasts, and they were using the StreamYard, and I was just like, let me just try. Right. So here
Mm-hmm.
again, didn't do anything. My YouTube channel sat dormant for 2 years because I
Yeah.
was literally doing content for other channels and what have you, right? And I was just like, what the hell? Let's see. And got the wife, and to tell her when there's like not much income coming in, oh honey, here's another $25 that we're gonna have to add to the bills for this thing. And I don't know if it's gonna work, but here we go. And literally I just started reaching out to people like that I'd known, and around the combat sports community and what have you, and we're about 200 plus episodes in.
Yeah, and that's huge. Congratulations for that. But it's honestly like it's a lot to create your own channel, not just that, like subscriptions, ring light, lighting, like cameras, anything like that. Once I started kind of like purchasing, and mind you, like I still have a regular job, like I'm still normal, I'm still a human being. So I don't think people realize that content creators still kind of have to have like that regular job to kind of be able to bring in that income, not just how to pay bills, but because a lot of content creating is free. You have to do a lot of free work before you can actually get to the point where it's kind of coming back in. So it's a lot of sacrifice, but I feel like it's rewarding as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, you guys are all just a tad bit talented than I. One of the reasons why I go live and have all the intro and whatever, because I hate editing. Like once
Yeah.
we're done, and we get to share each other's stuff and everything like that. Like there's other, like you said, most people work other jobs and whatever. So catch it live, awesome. And then here's the catch 22. It's like, oh, if you see like comments when you watch the replays, they're like, oh, how can I comment? And then they check out your social media pages and subscribe to the channel, and like, oh, this is when you're going live, cool. And then they jump on, and it's there you go.
I know. So honestly, like I don't know if you know, but my experience with StreamYard was not the best. So I've actually switched from StreamYard to Zoom because I was just more comfortable with that. StreamYard, I don't know what it was, and after I kind of had that incident where it was not working for me, I was like, I am not using that streaming service again. But it's been really good to me, so I'm gonna keep it going as guest appearances. So yeah, fingers crossed. But Zoom's kind of been my way of recording and doing things, and then I just edit and include my intros and outros and simple editing, but it's fun. It's a learning experience.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, picking out the thing that works best for you. And that's one thing that, thankfully, of course, there's a lot of, doom and gloom in terms of like the pandemic or what have you. But like this last 8 to 9 months has really taught I mean, if you kind of paid attention to the lessons, it's, you know, it's like
Yeah.
people that are waiting for the sign, right? Of like, do this or do that or whatever. And it like smacks you in the face. And you're
Yeah.
like, and you
That
don't
was
do anything. And then you blame whatever, you know,
yeah.
and it's just like this. No, this should have been a time to realize like what's important in your life, what is pretty much like you could expel from your life. And it's, you know, and it's, you know, a time where you should, you know, either figure out what you're capable of and maybe learn what you can, you know, achieve. So that's
Definitely.
to me that's what 2020 is going to mean.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I had two options. Once AfterBuzz closed, either I stopped creating content and everyone slowly forgot about me, or I started creating my own content and I kept going. And let me tell you, I doubt myself a little bit, but I never quit. I love to. I'm a fighter, so especially for my career and for my dreams, I don't stop. Like, I'm very motivated when it comes to all that. Like, if I'm not doing anything productive, I get really anxious because I'm like, I need to do something productive for my career. So kind of once that hit, I was like, either you have two options. Quitting is the easy option, or you keep going, and then slowly people are going to go to your channel, you're going to create your own content, and you're still going to have that support system. And when I put up my first video, it was literally just me talking. The amount of support that I got, the amount of feedback that I got, and it just was like, great job. It felt so good that motivated me even more to keep going and keep going. And yes, I recently had a little bit of a break just because life happens. But I came back with the Total Bellas recap, like Cafe con Leslie Total Bellas edition, and it's been great to kind of see like the views that continue to go up. Mind you, I don't really like to pay attention to that. It's just a matter of like I'm creating content, and that's an accomplishment for myself. But to see kind of the support that I have to see, especially the fans that have been so loyal to me, it makes my heart so happy because I never thought that these like fans or people who watched me at AfterBuzz would kind of follow me, continue to support me. So I want to shout out to all of you guys who are constantly supporting me, tagging me, reaching out to me. I know Johan Peña's always DMing me to see if I'm okay, especially if I don't post a video. He's like, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" I'm like, "I'm fine. I just haven't, had time. Life happens." But I've had some really loyal fans that are still with me till this day. It's been 3 years now.
I think it's awesome. I think it's absolutely awesome. Now, you mentioned about your, like, that first show, right?
Yeah.
That first show. What was it, and what were you talking about? Because I kind of got a little bit of the taste of like that AfterBuzz kind of, mode of operations, because
Yeah.
George Hermosa had me on the Wrestling Chatter with none other than former WWE Women's and Impact Knockout Champion Lisa Marie Verone, or Victoria or Tara, whichever one you want to subscribe to. But he was messaging me like, talk or whatever, and I'm used to just like, no, if you're gonna talk, you talk, and then whatever, right? And he's like, no, you can jump in. I'm like, oh, okay. But I kind of had a similar experience. So what was that episode? And what do you remember what you guys were talking about?
Well, so the first episode that I ever uploaded on my channel was honestly just a video of me talking on why I'm creating my own channel, why now, what kind of led me to kind of the struggles that I was recently going through, and it's titled Cafe con Leslie, Why Now? So it's more of like, I'm letting you guys know this is my journey and this is the beginning of this channel. So that was the first one. So I literally had to push myself to just put my phone and hit record. Just start talking, and just let it be. And that's what I did. So that was the first episode. And that's when I started to get a lot of feedback, and everyone was commenting like, good job. I'm so excited for you. Like, this is great. And then the first episode, I did kind of like, it was an AfterBuzz similar to that, like an after show where I talked about the women's evolution, and I had Bryant Santos, Jack Farmer, Flobo Boys, and George Hermosa on there. So it was great. And that's the one that I told you that I've had technical difficulties on that. Thank God for my friends that know how to keep going, who are professionals and just kept going with the flow. But that was the first time I ever used StreamYard. I had no idea how to work it, and it was just a mess. So then it took me, and that's what I'm saying, like, when those incidents happen, I took a step back and was like, can I really do this? Like, I don't want to be dealing with all these technical difficulties, because again, I was safe. I was at AfterBuzz where they did everything for me. All I had to do was go in and talk, and now it's like, okay, I have to figure out these technical issues or how to work a camera and things like that. But it took me a little bit to kind of get back into it. So that's when I hit episode 3, and that's when I kind of got my flow into things. And I had to reach out to the only person that I feel can always calm me down and just will say, go for it, don't worry about it. And that was Flobo Boyce. So I had him as my first guest. And yeah, it was great. It was a good conversation. I want to have him again. And once I hit that 3rd episode, it was more of like, what's my purpose for this channel? And I don't know if you've seen a lot of them, but I like to say that as entertainers, as content creators, we don't really get to tell our story, especially in the AfterBuzz setting. We were just talking about a show. So it's like, let's get to know each other. Let's get to know each other more on a personal level to kind of motivate people if they're going through the same struggles. So the purpose of my channel is to tell our story as content creators, but to also give people a little bit motivation, especially during this time where a lot of people don't have jobs. A lot of people are just looking at news that's I feel like everyone's on edge and anxious because of what's going on. So I didn't want my channel to be something negative or something where people were talking about like the pandemic and things like that. I wanted to be more of like a motivational episode where we tell our story, we motivate people, and we kind of relate to every single person that's going through the same thing.
Now, what was the thing? Obviously, you guys kind of had a rapport, to an extent at AfterBuzz, but in terms of having your former colleagues on, like, was there anything that you didn't know about somebody's start that you're like, man, I'm so glad that I created this channel? Because not just like getting the content and motivating yourself, but also like having a bit of like validation of like, hey, this is. I mean, I think I was like 40 episodes in to like, oh, I'm actually creating the thing that I would like to watch. So like, what was it for you? And what, I mean, did you find out anything about maybe Joel or Flobo?
Yeah, with Flobo, it was a lot of like, he's really 100% committed to this freelance content creator thing. So I always thought like financially, I was like struggling with all this. So, but I didn't realize how much he was struggling as well. Like, he was open about that. So I'm like, oh wow, like, okay, so we all go through all this. Everyone struggles when they move to LA. Everyone struggles, especially financially, because it's really expensive to be a freelancer and to do all this. So that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned from him, is that it's okay to ask for help, because you have to sacrifice a lot to get to where you're at. And you see him now, he has like 15 shows that I can't even keep up with, but he's doing this full time. And then, so that was from him. From Ollie Drennan, it was more of like the personal issues that he goes through in regards to like being open about being gay and being in the public eye and getting a lot of those negative comments and how he deals with it. So that was one of the biggest things that I learned from him, is that yes, like those negative comments do exist. It doesn't matter how big you are, people are going to come after you. So just learning how to ignore that and be mentally strong, especially in this industry where I'm sure you're going to have your haters and you're going to have people who are going to talk bad about you, but you keep going. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned from him. And then Brian Santos, he's something else. But it was more of like his story of coming from a small island to really growing, and so quickly he came into AfterBuzz and like just did everything, but he still came from a small island and had a very small family dynamic. So yeah, I learned a lot of different things from everyone. And again, it's like they tell those stories that we don't get to tell on an after show about another show, where we don't really get to talk about our personal lives or what we're going through, especially right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's different from being and it's not like a demeaning term, but I think that's the term. It's like a talking head on a show versus versus basically getting kind of in depth with people, because I mean, and
Right.
it's kind of funny because you can essentially get like, oh, I'm just talking about like Nikki Bella, right? But I mean, you're not talking about the person Nikki Collis or anything like that.
Right.
Like you kind of have your way out, but this is a little bit more invasive. But you kind of get the heart of the matter, in the words of Don Henley.
Yeah, and I'm very blessed to say that people, well, I'm an open book. Like if you meet me, like I just get really, I'm really comfortable with people. So people tend to come on my show and just be comfortable with telling me things. I don't like to do it in the sense of like, I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to make you uncomfortable. That's not the purpose of Café con Leslie. The purpose of Café con Leslie is to be motivate these people to tell our story that sometimes we don't get to tell, that sometimes we don't get to really share with people, because again, like you said, we're focused on what happened on Monday Night Raw, what happened on the Total Bellas after show, where yes, we can kind of say we relate to these issues, but we don't really get to go in depth. And I feel like to share our stories and to motivate those who are probably going through the same thing, I think is like it's the biggest reward for me to just motivate at least one person who's watching my videos.
Absolutely. I mean, you motivated the heck out of me, 100%. And then
Thank
also,
you.
Ariana Daisy Ojeda, just heart
Uh,
emoji all around. So shout
well,
out to Ariana.
That's that's my sister. So
Hey, there you go.
I was gonna
There you
say
go.
I have a really big support system, especially my family. They try to watch everything, and I remember my first after show. Everyone sat on the living room and put the after show on the plasma TV to watch it together. So I'm very blessed to say that I have a very, very, very good support system, and I honestly wouldn't be here without my family.
That's absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And it's weird how family dynamics can change the way that you approach things, because like
Yeah.
my mom, much like Mr. Santos that you were talking about earlier, like she comes from Fiji, right? Like my
Hmm.
dad's American descendant of slaves, and then my mom from Fiji, right? But my
Yeah.
mom, I kind of had a not an in but my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, essentially was the first non-British person on the radio back in Fiji,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So, yeah, so in a lot of ways, like she molded me because she, spent her adult life here in the States and not in
Hmm.
Fiji. She kind of molded me in the mold of her father, right? That she was
Yeah.
very close to. So, I would be watching wrestling, and I thought, like, my dad is 6'4", right? American descendant of slaves from Indiana. And my mom, she's about like, you know, 5'9". I've got aunties in my family that are literally like 6 foot on the Melanesian Polynesian side. So I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go to Japan and like probably like have this killer career, blow out my knees, because that's what happens when you're tall, and then go and settle into this like commentary spot somewhere, right? That was
Hmm.
that was me. Like that was me in high school. And then that growth spurt never came, and I just ended up 5'9", and I was just like, and it literally took me like 15 years from high school until when I started doing it about 4 years ago, like
Yeah.
15 years um, to do this. But then
Yeah.
I've never felt more defined and, just, rewarded, right?
Yeah.
Rewarded, right? Than doing this very thing. So family support is crucial.
Definitely. And you'll hear that a lot from me. If anyone asks me like what motivates you, what keeps you going, is honestly my family, because I grew up very differently, where my siblings actually raised me, because I grew up with a single mom. So it was more of like they sacrificed so much of their life to get me to where I'm at, to always make sure that I'm taken care of. And it's not like they ever asked for anything in return, but it's more of like, I am going to be someone. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to succeed because if I succeed, they succeed with me. So it's more of like, and through the ups and downs with everything that's been going on with this career, it's a lot of sacrifice, like I was saying. I'm very blessed to say that they've never left my side. They always motivate me. Even my mom, she's on top of it. If I don't post something, she's like, why aren't you recording? What's going on? Like, you need to make sure you continue to record and create your videos. And I'm like, I know, Mom, like, trust me, I'm getting there. So yeah, it's just it was a matter of, especially for my channel, to get into a routine, get into kind of like a schedule in a way of what am I gonna do now or next, and to continue to get those guests. I also was able to get a regional Mexican artist through one of, like, he was a really good friend of mine. So it was cool to, again, tell those stories from these not only content creators, but artists or singers or people who are just in a public figure who don't really get to tell their personal stories. So that was kind of my mission for it, and I'm just very blessed to say that I'm here because of my family, and again, they motivate me to be something bigger in life and not just settle for less.
No, I think it's absolutely fabulous. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, being on AfterBuzz, you had a strong kind of wrestling, acumen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what was it that drew you into professional wrestling?
Honestly, it was the reality show. So I did grow up watching wrestling here and there, but I'm not going to say I grew up as a kid watching wrestling every Monday or anything like that. It was more of like when one of my cousins was into it, I'll watch an episode of John Cena or when he was like big back in the day. So it was more of like I would just watch whenever someone else was watching. But it wasn't until Total Divas kind of hit that I wanted more. I didn't really care more. I cared about the reality side of it, but that's when, like, I watched Raw, I watched SmackDown, and then I was like, okay, like, this is cool. I'm really into, like, the shows now. So it was connecting the reality shows to the actual wrestling shows. And then, so that's when I started becoming, like, a big fan and watching every single week. And again, like in my family, in my household, we're very big on sports, and that includes wrestling. You'll catch SportsCenter on all the time, every Sunday. Like I said, we have the football games on every single day. Any big sports event, it's on at my house. So wrestling was another kind of tradition that once we all kind of started watching the reality show and things like that, I was like, okay, this is it. Like, I really like it. And then that's when I started seeing Renee Young. Again, is one of my biggest inspirations to kind of be in front of the camera and to talk about wrestling or sports or anything like that. So to see them and to be able to do it in a male dominated industry, those are the things that kind of motivated me. So yeah, it was kind of because of Total Divas that I really started watching and being a loyal fan. And then slowly, once I really started to pay attention to women's wrestling, I started to watch NXT with Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky. And I'll never stop saying this, but once I watched TakeOver Brooklyn with Bayley versus Sasha, my perspective of women's wrestling changed forever. I literally cried at the end of that match because it was just so motivating to see these two women to have no rules, kill it in 2 matches. It was 2 takeovers, 2 matches.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's when I was like, okay, I really love wrestling. And even sometimes where it's a little bit hard, honestly, at least for me, to keep up and to be consistent, especially when I just moved and I don't have cable and things like that. But I always try to keep up with storylines. And, Raw, it's a little lengthy sometimes, so it's very hard to just watch the whole 3 hours and literally sit there and not get distracted. But I'm a big fan of wrestling because of that, and I keep watching, and I keep watching these women change women's wrestling, continue to break barriers, and they're killing it. It's just, yeah, it's women's wrestling that kind of got me into it.
No, it's brilliant. Now Sasha, in terms of there's like I want to say like once in a generation like talent, right? But like she is one where you could put her in any era. Like I could see her in like the the mid '80s, in the AWA, tangling with Sensational Sherry, right, or Sherry
Mhm.
Martel before she became Sensational Sherry, because
Right.
she was crazy. Or
Mhm.
even Luna Vachon or Alendra Blaze later. Like I could kind of put her there, or even like
Yeah.
the Fabulous Moolah. Like that character can work, in any territory at any time. But
Yeah.
she's also one who just like literally will risk life and limb, right? The litany of injuries that she's sustained just being on the main roster because she wants to have a good match. And again,
Right.
she would have fit in any locker room anywhere at any time.
And honestly, I feel like people don't appreciate Sasha enough. I feel like there's a lot of they talk more bad about her than good, but I've always appreciated her and Bailey. But Sasha's always been when I watch Sasha, she gives me that confidence. Like, yeah, I'm the boss. Nobody's gonna mess with me. And I always say this: if I could be a wrestler and if I could have my own gimmick, it would literally be a combination of the hugger that was Bailey before, because she just loves everyone and loves to hug people. But I come with Sasha as well because she's so fierce. She's doesn't care what anyone's gonna say about her, and she's the boss. So if I can combine those two, that would be my perfect gimmick.
That's something. I mean, and that would make one hell of a face or heel turn
Yeah,
when that eventually happens. So, I mean, we're kind
for
of seeing
sure.
it play out right now between Bailey and Sasha. So, I mean, imagine if that was all wrapped up in one person. So, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know it's pretty crazy, especially to see kind of the evolution of Bailey as well. It took me a while, I'm not gonna lie, to warm up to the whole heel thing, but I feel like now she's kind of nailed it. Because I always loved the whole hugger gimmick and all that. So I feel like now it fits her, and I just, as much as I love them competing together as a team, I love them more competing individually because they know each other so well, yet they continue to find new moves to bring out in the ring. And like the Hell in a Cell match that I watched, I was like, oh my god, they're still doing something different. I never expected Sasha to go into the bank statement like that or things like that. I'm like, oh my god, they challenge each other, and that's why these matches are as amazing as they are.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I like in terms of like WWE kind of heel turn imagery, right? So
Yeah.
I'm of a certain age where I remember like the Undertaker trapping the Ultimate Warrior in a casket, and locking him in, or Sean literally throwing Marty Jannetty into the barbershop window, right? Like I
Yeah.
remember that. So Bailey kind of tearing apart her kind of like wind sock thingies or whatever. Like to me, that is something that is going to like the way that like if you're gonna go heel, that is the perfect way to do it. And again, like her just kind of slashing away, like and of
Yeah,
course, like
it hurt.
yeah,
I was
it
like,
did.
that's
But that's
gone.
what it's supposed to do. Like watch Eddie Guerrero. That dude can turn like make you turn on a dime, and you could cheer him and like throw babies in the air, as Jim Cornette says, or like you want to slash his tires. Like, and he was
Right.
that guy. So it's cool to see, and obviously Sasha is heavily influenced by Eddie, but it's cool to see that kind of thing happen. It's almost like you know Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., right? So
hmm
Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., obviously he has Junior, right,
Right.
to kind of carry the mantle, but
hmm
with a fan base that should have gone to Junior, and the presence actually goes to like Triple G, because Triple G is more like Chavez Sr. than
Right.
even his own son, right? So it's kind of
Which is
funny.
crazy. A lot of people do expect him to be exactly like his dad, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. So, yeah, it's crazy to see. I love boxing too, so it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've covered the what is it, the open workouts at the Bank of California Stadium. So I actually
hmm
have like tucked away autographed poster from Triple G. I will
Oh, wow.
always like, yeah, Triple G is the dude. Canelo's kind of douchey, so
Hey, I'm a Canelo fan. I knew you were going to say something
okay.
about him.
It's cool. It's just
I
and
support
it's
him.
the same thing with like Sasha, right? Like incredible performer, incredible whatever, and then the accolades stop if you aren't one of the in crowd. and meet
Yeah,
them in person, then it's like
I
I'm good.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Definitely.
now, now you were talking about like the reality show of the WWE that
Yeah.
got you. So what was it? Was it like the Total Bellas, like Total Divas, like that stuff?
I'll always remember Total Divas season 1, episode 1, where like you get to they introduce you to the Bellas. So I've always been a huge fan of the Bella twins. I've always loved them. I always wanted to be like them. So I'm a huge fan of them. So I think, yeah, just kind of seeing these women in more of a personal level. We obviously saw their relationships, but not just that, like how much they struggled back then to even get a match. So to kind of see their matches get cut and how they felt, and really the struggle that they would go through as women wrestlers, and how they didn't have the support back then, to kind of see now like the behind the scenes of all that, I think is really interesting. I love to know more the personal level on these like wrestlers. So I love to watch WWE 24, the behind the scenes of like what leads to like a WrestleMania match, what leads to a huge heel turn, like with Jimmy and Jey Uso, how they had to split. Now it's like, how is the family thinking about it? Because we see such a strong family dynamic that we've seen on Total Divas. So it's more seeing of that personal level in regards. I don't know. It's just weird. I just really like the fact that they can tell their stories through the reality show.
Well, I like it for a completely different reason. And so, I mean, Kingdom just debuted on Netflix over the pandemic, right? And it's an awesome show, all 3 seasons of it. But part of the
Yeah.
fun is watching like some of my friends that were extras on the show, right?
Oh,
And they're
okay, yeah.
doing the background and whatever. So it was fun. It's still fun to me watching one of the reality shows and they're backstage or whatever, and you see like talent just like duck away. Like
Yeah.
that's my favorite part of all of the shows. Like that'll get me watching hundred
So
percent.
you're on the lookout to see who you see as extras, or who's gonna be on this episode that you know, and you're like, hey, I saw you on this episode of Total Divas.
Yeah, and you just never know, right? What thing will kind of elicit a response, and awesome like content gold out of people, So
Yeah.
when you're like, oh no, I saw you, season 1, episode 3, and what were you doing and whatever, and they're like, oh, damn, like. My goodness, like I had Simon Gotch, Salmon Grimm, right for the right before the lead up to the blood sport shows, the Josh Barnett's blood sport shows, and he went like, I mean, 90 minutes, and I love him for it, but he went through like everything, and I was just like,
Yeah.
damn, dude.
I know, it's kind of cool to kind of see all that, especially with non-cast members who are on the show. Like, I know the last season of Total Divas, it was more of like, we saw a lot of Liv Morgan, but she wasn't even on the show. So it was really cool that they kind of got to tell her story without her even being part of the actual cast.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lobo Loco Alan Roque says COVID-19 shows no mercy when it comes to cutting shows and events. 100%, but
True.
he himself is a mixed martial artist who, I mean, won big in I believe a week and a half ago down in North Carolina. So shout out to Alan.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
We're making it work. I feel like now we're kind of getting back into things slowly. Things are getting bad again, but we're getting the hang of it. I feel now, this whole virtual interviews and virtual events, and we can only do so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I gotta ask, right? Because like I was always, and the shows that I was doing earlier, like I would travel like 90 minutes one way to Orange County to be a part of a YouTube show, Jim Crashers on Free Admission Media. Like I never liked that like not in person deal. Like I always preferred it because I was like, hey, if I want to be like Rogan, I want to have people in person. And Rogan dropped some. I mean, I think the first like kind of watershed moment was when like he had Edward Snowden, and of course Edward Snowden, whistleblower. He's like off somewhere in the Alps of Russia with decent internet connection. But I was like, hey, if Rogan can do it, what the hell? Yeah. So
Exactly.
how is it? I mean, do you have a preference? Do you like in persons, or are you kind of getting used to this?
Yeah, honestly, it took me a while to kind of get used to it. I am used to it now. I don't get scared or I'm not anxious before an interview or anything like that anymore. Now I kind of got a routine. I'm like, all right, got to set up, got to make sure everyone can hear or things like that. Kind of what goes on in regards to like these virtual interviews. But I obviously prefer being in studio, seeing everyone talk while watching shows or talk before interviews because it's just different. I love the whole in person, having that connection, having that person in front of you, and being able to talk after shows or before shows. But I mean, we had to adjust, so I've adjusted, but I would definitely love to go back to just being in person and having these conversations one on one.
I love it. Same, same. But also, I'm in the corner of my house, and there's a pandemic going on. I'm all like, I don't know if I never want to leave doing this. Like,
Exactly.
once you hit your stride, it's it does something different. That you were talking about confidence, but like a whole new level of confidence is like being able to figure it out, even against what you wanted to happen.
Yeah, for exactly. Definitely. That's a key point right there. Like you expect so much, especially with these like virtual interviews. You expect for them to go smooth, but then you have to adjust to whatever happens. And it is what it is. It's happened to me multiple times and I've kind of just learned let it go. It is what it is. It's out of your control.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, going back to AfterBuzz, was there a particular show or episode that you finally felt like you hit your stride?
Oof, that's a good question. Um Honestly, I felt the most comfortable in the Total Divas after shows because I knew it so well. I've been watching for such a long time that I knew my stuff. So and I could bring in because I would watch Raw like every week, so I could bring in both that knowledge of a wrestling fan and the knowledge of just a reality or a fan of the reality show. So I think once I got asked to moderate Total Divas, I was like, me? Why are you asking me to moderate? Like, there's so many other co-hosts that can do it. So I don't remember what season it was, but the first time I got to moderate, it felt good because that's when I started noticing that everyone at AfterBuzz, the staff, started believing in me and believing that I could moderate and create the conversation. Not that like if you're a moderator, you're less than everyone else, but you just have to know how to keep the conversation going. So yeah, it was once that, and once people really started talking, not talking about me, but like when I would get the fans comments like Joseph Boza, who would always be like, I really like Leslie, or I would get really good feedback once I would like be a guest on after shows when I did Raw. I was really nervous when I did Raw. I think that one was also one of the greatest moments of my after shows career because it's hard to win wrestling fans over, especially if they're so loyal to who's been doing it for such a long time. I mean, I went after Evan left and Flobo and Jim and Jack had such a great dynamic with TK as well. And I'm like, how the heck am I gonna fit in with these like pros who everyone loves already? So when I got asked to do the Raw after show for the first time, and once I got really good feedback, I was like, okay, this is it. Like you're good. Like you don't have to worry about anything. So yeah, I was once I started moderating for Total Divas. Once I did the Raw after show, and then once I got my own show to do in Spanish, that was a huge thing for me to be able to do the Raw after show en español with George Hermosa, which he was like not he wanted me to do it with him, but he didn't really want to do it. He didn't want to be the moderator because it's a lot. It's really nerve wracking to do a whole after show in Spanish. So once we kind of switched and I started moderating the show and things got better, yeah, I was like, wow, like we have our own show. Doing it in Spanish because nobody really spoke Spanish at AfterBuzz. So to kind of get that opportunity to have our own show and to do our own show, it was great.
I love it. Now I'm going to ask you, and I mean, I'm really going deep in the weeds with my question here, but I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you the same thing, but not AfterBuzz, but Cafe con Leslie.
That's a great question. So I think once, honestly, all my interviews with all my co-hosts, all my friends have been great. But I think the milestone so far has been being able to do a whole Spanish interview with the regional Mexican artist and being able to be confident about it, know what I'm doing, and leave that interview knowing that it was a good interview and I got to tell his side of the story all in Spanish. It doesn't matter if anyone's going to say something about the way I spoke or anything like that. I was in control. I did it, and that was a huge accomplishment. So yeah, being able to do a whole Spanish interview with a regional Mexican artist who's like killing it in Mexico, it was a big thing for me.
And then it also shows your versatility beyond just, reality TV shows and
Yeah,
WWE stuff. I mean, this is something completely away from it.
exactly. I always wanted to either do sports entertainment, or like just entertainment, Spanish TV, like entertainment. I always said I would love to be on like award shows on like Telemundo or Univision, because those are just really cool. The fact that they get to announce like all these artists or just be in that entertainment industry and field, it's always what's called my name. I'm not a serious person, so I don't know about hardcore news or anything like that. I'm more of like, let's have fun and let's talk about something entertaining.
I think I mean, but that in itself is a skill. Try to turn a Shakespearean actor into like somebody cop or comedy guy. Like it just
Exactly.
sometimes it doesn't work. So I mean,
Yeah,
that in itself is a skill.
for sure. I feel like I've definitely grown in the past couple of years. And again, like I said, after Bus Closing, it was a huge lesson for me and it pushed me to do what I'm doing now. So it was a blessing in disguise.
Now, I gotta ask, right? Because
Mhm.
you've had milestones in your career, but what is? I mean, if you could interview anybody, past, present, or anything, who is like the coup de grace, so to speak? Like, who would be the one person that you would love to interview the most?
Um, there's a lot, but just because I've been a huge fan and I love them, I'm obsessed with them, it has to be the Bella Twins. If I would get to interview the Bella Twins, that would be a dream come true, literally. It would be such a huge honor for me to be able to do that.
Well, we're putting it in the atmosphere there, so
Mm-hmm.
that's it. So, well, probably this time next year, I want to believe that you would make the strides to make that happen, and you'll probably hit it by May. So, just saying.
Yeah, let's put it out there. I'm all about putting it out, into existence. So yeah, it's funny because George asked me the same thing the other day. He was like, what if you can get the Bella Twins on your channel? And I'm like, stop. Like I would faint or something. I would obviously be professional, but then after, I don't know what I would do. I would probably cry of the excitement that I got to interview the Bella Twins.
I I think that's awesome. That's a top pick for a lot of people's list. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that can happen. I think that can happen. But I mean, obviously, you're making it happen in all of the things that you're doing, but I mean, you've had a strong support system around you throughout your career. So I want you to take some time and get some shout outs or acknowledgments out of the way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I have to thank all of my AfterBuzz peeps who've become family. I have to thank TK and Monique for pushing me through my first after shows through AfterBuzz. Who this little girl who couldn't talk and who couldn't say anything, they pushed her to be confident. I have to thank George Hermosa for always giving me opportunities, for always believing in me, for always I always say this, he believes in me more than I think I believe in myself, because he's always giving me these opportunities and always making sure that I know how good I am. Again, another person is my primo. We've literally become family. I can go to him and rant and vent and about anything, and he's actually the one that helped me come up with Cafe con Leslie. So thank you, Flobo Boys. I always have to shout you out because honestly, he's gotten me through these hard times during the pandemic. Also, all my friends who've been on my channel, Ollie, Bryant, and most importantly, my family. So my mom, my sisters, my brothers, and those have really been my strong support system, and all of my friends who've really supported me and my extended family who's reached out. I can say this, I've really grown as a person, and I've really learned, especially these past years, that I've had a lot of lost relationships, but the people who are really going to motivate you, who are going to see you grow, who are really going to be there for you sincerely and not want anything in return, you'll see those, and I've seen that. So this, at the end of 2020, that's been the biggest lesson too, that the people who are going to stick with me till the end are the ones that are with me right now. So again, if it wasn't for my family, my sisters, my brothers, Angel, Yuli, Daisy, I'm going to name all of them, Leo, my mom, who's always watching me, thank you, because I wouldn't be here without them.
I think it's brilliant. That's so brilliant. But I mean, you're someone that is inviting and warm. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go ahead and follow you, Leslie, on social media. And where are the best places to do such a thing?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Leslie Colon _. So LESLIECOLON _. And make sure to watch my new series, Cafe con Leslie, the Total Bellas edition, youtube.com/Leslie Colon, to watch it there. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's really been an honor, the fact that you're letting me and you want to hear my story, and that I'm able to kind of motivate people to just stop being afraid and just go for it. Just go for it.
Just do it. I mean, Nike made like $1 billion off of that very saying, but Leslie Colon is definitely echoing it here. But we thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. Leslie, thank you for being such a gracious guest, and I can't wait to see that Bella Twins interview on Cafe con Leslie. So we'll be watching.
It will happen. Sure. Thank you so much.
No worries. Now, but Leslie, I mean, you would want people to subscribe to this channel along with yours, right?
Of course. So make sure you subscribe to According to Woods. He has so many amazing guests, a lot of my friends who have amazing stories. So make sure you subscribe now to According to Woods, and you're going to get some great content and some great stories.
There you go. And then I will say again, subscribe to Cafe con Leslie. It's one of my favorite channels. You should do that. But I mean, in terms of my channel, I mean, if you don't take Leslie's word for it or mine, that's cool. Here's Zane